Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Vex, and I'm going to be doing a sort of a different style video than I normally do. Today, I'm going to be going over my thoughts on the new horror, battle royale, asymmetrical horror game, Hide or Die. I backed this game on Kickstarter about a year ago, and I've played several different iterations of it. The closed beta, which is really the closest we're going to get to the full game, ended yesterday, and I played a ton of it. So I have a lot of thoughts about the game, and I have a lot of concerns and quality of life improvement ideas. Also, I have a lot of things that might convince you to play it. I apologize for the informality of this video. I'm normally live 6 nights a week, so I'm still getting used to YouTube. If you have any criticisms or concerns or anything like that, just let me know in the comments below. All right, so what is Hide or Die? Hide or Die is, at its heart, a sort of asymmetrical battle royale. If you think of like Left 4 Dead mixed with Dead by Daylight and a little bit of PUBG, you'll kind of get a feeling about where the game's going. The best part about this game is that there's in-game communication between the survivors via a cell phone that you can text people with. You can text anyone in the lobby except for the killer. The killer obviously doesn't get access to that, but it's a really cool system of calling out where the killer is if you're trying to help out your teammate and whatnot, or if you're trying to maybe screw them over and you just kind of spam them with text messages so maybe the killer can hear it. All right, so game modes. The first mode we're going to talk about is escape mode. In this, you can have lobbies of up to 30 people. In the closed beta, we only reached about 16 to 20 in my highest player lobby game. I imagine when it comes to early access or when it's fully released, we'll get full lobbies. They limited the amount of people in the closed beta due to stressing the servers. So when it comes to August 1st, I'm sure we'll see full lobbies. In this game mode, you can run around and pick up weapons. There's guns of different rarities that have different stats. There's also melee weapons like bats and lead pipes. There's some defensive items too, like smoke screen, motion detectors, and even long-range teleporters, which are really, really useful. So the main objective of this game mode, other than surviving, is collecting darkness. Darkness is used as a currency of sorts, both in-game and out-of-game. Out-of-game, in the actual lobby, you can use it to purchase perks and things to upgrade your characters, and in-game, it actually helps you become the killer. All around the map, when you're playing in escape mode, there's various extractors, which are sort of like a little mini-game. You activate them, then they either require you to find some gasoline in the area to power the generators, or activate some fuse boxes that are in of themselves little mini games to get the extractor going. That'll take darkness out of the air and spew it out for you to collect. While the extractors are extracting the darkness and spewing it out for you to collect, you do have to fend off some entities of the darkness that are known as grunts. As your darkness meter goes up, your corruption meter will slowly start to tick up in percentage. Once you reach 100%, you can go to a darkness orb site, and you can enter the orb and become the killer. Currently, there's only 3 killers, but they do say that they're planning on making 4 more in 2019. As the killer, you can run around and murder other survivors. The more you kill, the more corruption you gain, so you stay as a killer longer. But over time, your corruption meter does tick down, and once it reaches 0, you go back to being a survivor. After completing a bunch of objectives and surviving for a while, extraction points will open up in various points of the map, and survivors can actually escape the game and be victorious. At this point, the person with the highest darkness points gets offered to be a killer, and they can switch to being a killer permanently. And if they do, they have to guard the exit gates to murder any straggling survivors. Once the exit gates are powered, you have about 3 minutes to escape. I'm not quite sure exactly what happens when the 3 minutes goes down, because I've either survived or died at an exit gate. But I have noticed that more than one exit gate or extraction point will open up at the end of the game. Killers can't defend both. They're either too far away or the killers aren't fast enough to get to both. So if you see a killer at one, you can sneak away and get to the other one before they get a chance to catch up to you. Escape game modes typically last about 15 to 25 minutes. All right, on to the second game mode, Last Man Standing. This is my personal favorite game mode. I'm a big fan of Battle Royales, and this is the Battle Royale game mode of Hide or Die. Lobbies are 16-person max, and you spawn in various hatches around the map just like in escape mode. It also has the typical Battle Royale storm circling the outer edges of the play area, getting smaller as the match goes on, limiting the play area so games don't last forever. But if you do go into the storm, you do take damage. It's very typical of a Battle Royale. Last Man Standing games normally take about 15 or 10 minutes, but really long ones can go about 20 minutes, but there's a pseudo maximum because of the storm. After about 30 seconds from spawn, a darkness orb appears at a random point on the map, and players can run up to it and become the killer, but only one player can become the killer at once. Killers have a very similar darkness meter to escape mode. It ticks down over time, but the more people you kill and the more corrupted deeds you do, the longer you can stay the killer. And just like escape mode, if the corruption meter reaches 0, you go back to being a survivor. All of your text messages are wiped, so you don't get to know people's locations while you were a killer. While a killer is active, 2 to 3 fuse boxes will activate inside the play area. Killers can see their locations. If you have ever played Dead by Daylight, they're very similar to generators. It's a sort of little mini game, and killers can see if someone's using the little mini game, and they can see a little defend icon, so they know to go over and defend that one. Survivors get XP, and they take off a chunk of the corruption meter of the killer if they activate a fuse box while a killer is active. So now when the killer's corruption meter reaches 0, that person goes back to being a survivor, and about 10 or 15 seconds, a new corruption orb appears in a new random location in the play area, and it's another opportunity for someone to become the killer. So you just continue doing this, one person becoming the killer, the other people trying to survive, until the play area is small enough that it's very hard to hide forever from the killer. Survivors do have access to somewhat defensive items like smokescreen, taser guns, but until the last survivor and the killer are the only ones left, there's actually no weapons. So when the game is down to one survivor and the killer, the survivor has a chance to pick up guns. Varying rarities, there's sniper rifles, pistols, shotguns, things like that. And it's kind of a kill or be killed situation where you can attack the killer with the gun and potentially kill them, or they can find you and murder you. All right, so now I'm going to talk about a bunch of the things that I'm really excited for about this game and things that I would consider pros about the game. So I genuinely get scared playing this game. But with the right surroundings and equipment, I feel like I actually have a good chance of escaping the killer and hiding, or even killing the killer in escape mode. Jukes in this game feel incredibly satisfying, but are really, really risky. They typically involve smokescreen or stunning the killer, but I've had some cool jukes inside of the packing plant that I'm very, very proud of. So I did mention that this game is reminiscent of a few other games, Left 4 Dead, PUBG, Dead by Daylight, but that's not to take away from Hide or Die. Hide or Die is actually a pretty unique gaming experience, which is why I've stuck with it for so long. So my favorite part about the game, which may or may not be good, is the pregame lobby. Honestly, it's you spawn in, you get 4 minutes until the game actually starts, and as people filter in, you can talk with them on the cell phone and whatnot. You can text them and run around this like small room. There's graffiti that Kickstarters have put on there. There's plaques with people's names on it, and just the banter on the text message it's so reminiscent of like the Halo multiplayer lobby days, and it gives me a lot of nostalgia, and it's very, very fun. So being a horror game freak, I definitely look for some things in a game to kind of criticize if it claims to be a horror game, and soundtrack and atmosphere definitely add on to that, and Hide or Die hits that 100% on the head. The map, the crows, the sounds, the atmosphere, everything adds up to a very horrifying and scary and really, really fun experience. So the map that you play on is just one big map, and it's very, very populated. Lots of things you can hide in, lots of buildings. Every building that you see, you can go into, and it's populated with items and clutter and things that, don't necessarily have to do with the game, but add a little bit of flair to the game. And I keep going back to it, but the meat plant is really my favorite because it's kind of like a maze. And if you run a little bit too fast, maybe you'll knock down something and it'll make a big noise and alert the killer. There's even a fun house, a sort of like carnival ride in the carnival section of the map. It's really good. I love the amount of items that are in it, the diversity of the different areas. It really adds to the kind of atmosphere and spookiness of the game. I hate to keep trying to compare it to a different game because you really can't with this game. It's unlike anything else. But I stream a lot of Dead by Daylight, and I've been looking for a way to kill the killer as a survivor for a really, really long time. And when you get to that last man standing, kill or be killed stage as a survivor, it really feels satisfying when you pick up a sniper and you hit the killer enough times to knock them out and you win the game. As a content creator and gamer, I mostly enjoy games that have a lot of replay value, that can offer me the most hours of enjoyment and hours of content creation. And this game, off the bat, comes with two very diverse game modes, and both of them are random enough that I could play them for hours and hours on end, and I hope to create a bunch of content revolving around the two. There's been a couple newer battle royales that launched with only one game type, and while that's fun, it does get boring, even with some randomness. Hide or Die launching with two game modes. I play, Escape when I want to do a more player versus environment type of game, and I play Last Man Standing if I want a more player versus player experience. Having choices in a game like this is really good for the longevity of it, because someone like me who plays a game 6 times a week for hours and hours on end can get burnt out playing some games, and there's a lot of diversity here. There's a lot of choices that'll keep me coming back for more. Another great thing I've seen with the survivors and the killers are the perks. You can unlock perks with your darkness points, and none of them seem too overly powered or busted. They've done a lot of tuning with them to make them all seem very fair and very viable. The last really great thing that I want to talk about are the developers. They've really poured their heart and soul into this game, and it shows. All throughout the alphas and the betas, throughout the whole last year, they've been on the Discords. The last really great thing that I want to talk about are the developers. They've really poured their heart and soul into this game for a long time. All throughout the alphas and betas, they were on the Discords replying to questions and fixing bugs around the clock. On the spot, they were there. If you ever had any need, oh my God. The last great thing that I want to talk about are the developers. They poured their heart and souls into this game, and it really shows. All throughout the alphas and the betas, they were on the Discord around the clock, fixing bugs and answering any questions that you could ever ask them. The sheer dedication is really astounding in today's gaming atmosphere. You wouldn't ever see this from any other developer, at least I haven't seen it, especially in other beta tests. Okay, with all the great stuff out of the way, I also think it is really great for criticism, as long as it's constructive. So let's tear into this game a little bit and give some constructive criticism. So the first blaring thing to me is a casting time when you go to pick things up. You don't just, like any other game, you don't just hit the button and press E or press F to open whatever it is and pick it up right away. There's a small 2-second or 1.75 second casting time when you pick things up, and it's very apparent when you're being chased by the killer and you need to pick up something in a hurry. Because by the time you get to the thing and start the casting timer to pick it up, the killer's already hit you twice and you're dead. So when you're extracting the darkness in escape mode, The grunts are pretty one-dimensional. They kind of ragdoll out of the sky. They just spawn in the sky, and you can see that happen. They hit the ground with a big thud, and then they're almost always dead in 2 hits. With any weapon, it doesn't matter if it's the bat, the lead pipe, whatever. But they do tend to swarm quickly if you don't take care of them. So I guess that's pretty good. They can overwhelm you quickly. I think I would like to see variants of the grunt, either bigger ones that are stronger, or something more akin to Left 4 Dead, where there's maybe a boss one, or ones with different abilities. Things that make it a little bit scarier, that you might need help of other survivors to extract the darkness from the extractors and help defend it from the darkness grunts. So I can't remember exactly where on the map it is, but there's a watchtower that's it's pretty tall. It's like 60 or 50 feet tall, and it's got a kind of spiral staircase that it takes to go up. It takes about 10 seconds to climb up the circular stairs. I was playing Killer and saw some survivors run up it. There's boxes at the top of it. I was chasing them up it. There's boxes on top that they can kind of do some weird geometry jumps to get on top of. And when I got to the top, they just kind of flung themselves from the top of the tower. And I was having a hard time following the geometry jumps to get off of the tower. So I ended up running all the way back down the tower. And by the time they did that, they stunned me, and then they walked all the way back up the tower. And it was a vicious cycle, and by the time I got back up, most of my corruption meter was gone. I just think that jumping from like a 60-foot tower, either as the killer or the survivor, something should happen. Maybe you lose a significant amount of HP. Maybe you break your legs. Maybe you die. It just seemed like a spot where they shouldn't have been able to jump off, but they were, and they took no repercussions for it. So in terms of customization, I understand that this is an early access game, so more will be added later, but you only get a few hair options and a few facial options. You also don't get access to a full beard, which I'm kind of disappointed about. But also, in terms of the store, you can't buy things with real money. You have to buy it with in-game credits that you can find in either of the game modes, just kind of laying about. They're mostly found in escape mode. I found myself playing escape mode, just running around the map, farming credits for like a few hours straight just to try and afford some of the stuff. But I didn't even get there, and it was just a kind of unfun experience. So I think the credit system also for shop items needs to be looked at. Currently, there's really no way to test killers or to learn them before becoming them in a game, which really kind of hurts. As an example, I got a perk from the scientist that automatically pings my radar, so I don't have to do it because I don't know how to ping the radar. The radar's changed a lot throughout the time that I've played the game, and I activate his radar and he pulls it up, and maybe I was just missing something, but it wasn't pinging. But I got the perk that allowed it to ping automatically, and I started finding survivors. So having the ability to go into maybe a small only you lobby where you can look around the map and get some idea of hiding places and become the killer and run around as the killer without a time limit, so you have a chance to really look at your abilities and figure them out before you're kind of on the clock trying to get kills. The killer's terror radius, or your own heartbeat, gets louder and louder as the killer gets closer to you, but it's kind of messed up right now. I'm not sure. It seems very, very large. When a killer is at the farthest that my viewing distance can view, I can still hear the heartbeat a little bit, and it's really tough to know the direction that the killer's coming from, or even if a killer is walking by you or walking away from you. There's kind of only 2 or 3 different variations of the heartbeat. It's either very slow, a medium rate, or a very fast rate, and it's kind of difficult for me to discern which one's which and where the killer is. So in Last Man Standing, survivors can only hold 1 item at a time. You can't pick up 2 smoke grenades. You can't have a stun gun and a smoke grenade. You can only have 1 item, which kind of stinks if you shoot the killer with your stun gun, and then you have to run around and try and find a different item to help you escape a little bit farther away. But there's a casting time every time you go to pick up something. It kind of touches on what I talked about earlier about being found and killed before I have the chance to actually pick up something after I've stunned the killer. So a few things that I think could use improvement. These aren't either good or bad. They're just things that I noticed while playing the game and thought that I would share because I've played the game quite a bit. As a sort of quality of life thing, I think having the countdown timer before the game starts on the actual phone screen in the main lobby or in the pre-game lobby would be a big improvement. There's several places in the building that you're in the lobby that don't have a screen, and it seems like a little minor thing, but it would be a big quality of life improvement. Another quality of life thing, when you switch back to Survivor after you've been a killer in Last Man Standing, you don't start with an item in your hand. It was just very jarring when someone became the killer kind of right next to me after I was a survivor, or I was a killer and became a survivor again. I had a stun gun, but I didn't realize I didn't have it equipped. So I had to kind of run away and realize that, oh, hey, I don't have this thing in my hand. Here we go. It was just very jarring and didn't really make much sense. In escape mode, not Last Man Standing, when you die, you can spectate. And when you spectate, you become a crow. It's actually a pretty neat idea. You just kind of fly around the map. You can caw. You can watch people from the air. But the flying is atrocious at best. It is very difficult to fly the crow. It's very difficult to find people. You kind of always spawn on one part of the map. And it's also very weird that you can't spectate in Last Man Standing. Last Man Standing seems to have the most action that I would want to see. I understand that there's a storm constantly shrinking, but if you could have the person that spectates spawn inside the storm as a crow or spawn inside the zone, I feel like there's something there. So there is a field of view slider in this game, but if you put it to maximum like I always do in any first-person game that I play, the phone becomes illegible. It becomes so tiny, you can barely see that there's messages, everything's blurry. I'm not quite sure if that's intended, but I did have to restrict my field of view in order to read the phone. Sometimes the fuses that spawn when someone becomes a killer in Last Man Standing seem to spawn way too close to each other, like within viewing distance of each other, maybe only 40 or 50 meters. That's very easy for the killer to defend. They can go into their little quick invisible zoomy mode and be at the other one in no time, and it becomes really toxic trying to be able to complete one of the fuse boxes, and survivors just end up waiting out the timer, and that seems not fun. Another sort of unfun thing about the fuses when someone becomes a killer, sometimes they'll spawn on the outer edges of the play area, and then the storm comes in and restricts the play area so that the fuse is on the other side of the storm and you have to go in and damage yourself to hopefully, activate it in time before you die and get back into the actual play area. This also creates a sort of gameplay where you're rather hiding instead of actually accomplishing things and getting XP. It's another very unfun situation. So there you have it. My thoughts on Hide or Die, both good and bad. I hope it came off as constructive criticism because I definitely meant it to be. This is an early access game, so things will change. Things will get smoothed out. Bugs will get fixed. Maybe there are some things that I talked about that weren't intentional that will get fixed in time. The developers are very good about listening to feedback, and I recommend this game to anyone contemplating buying it. Pick it up on August 1st. The early access is going to be great. It's going to be fun. Hopefully we can get a lot of people in on this game. I think it's a kind of sleeper game. It's really fun, and I definitely want to help support these developers. I backed this game, last year, and I have a couple of markers in the game. I have my Avex name in the game, and I have some gravestones that we haven't found yet. But hopefully we'll see you in Hide or Die on August 1st. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This stuff is totally new to me, so if you have any constructive criticism of your own for my channel or my YouTube content, definitely let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. See you next time.